Greetings world. We are anonymous.
Thank you very much. You folks are in here. Place is packed. There are lines that go back 6 blocks. There is such love in this country for everything we stand for. You saw that on Election Day. And you're going to see it more and more. So we're all part of this very historic movement, a movement the likes of which, actually, the world has never seen before.
Fascism. Over the last few years, we've seen it escalate around the world. This has been most prevalent since the rise of Trump, who has emboldened dictators everywhere with his embrace of nationalism, authoritarianism, and politics of division. This escalation of fascism has given way to an increase in domestic terrorism in the United States.
There will be a civil war in the United States of America. The Christians will finally come out of the shadows.
The sign says, hey, liberals, better get your guns if you try to impeach President Trump.
Just try it. You will have a spasm of violence in this country, an insurrection like you've never seen.
3% of us own over 160 million guns. Why would they need all those guns?
I would take up arms because I think I think we need a revolution. I'm not a violent person. I'm even an ordained pastor.
Michael Moore's everywhere saying, surround the Capitol, surround them, uprise, get violent. How do I know? I told you, I'm not that smart.
We're in literally a 10 or 20 year struggle for the future of the country, and that's where you're just going to have to man up, toughen up, just like our forefathers, right? We're going to have to do exactly the kind of effort they had, and we can win.
The white establishment is now the minority.
You ready to shoot Barry? All right, let's go. He's bleeding now, isn't he?
According to the Anti-Defamation League, every single extremist murder in 2018 was committed by right-wing extremists. The ADL states right-wing extremists killed 50 people last year, mostly with firearms, making them responsible for more deaths than in any year since 1995.
So what percentage of extremist murders in 2018 were perpetrated by the right wing? Well, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, did a study about it, and the answer is all of them. You heard that right. 100% of extremist murders that took place in 2018 were perpetrated by people who were driven by causes from the right wing. The Anti-Defamation League's annual report on extremist killings in the United States, released Wednesday, found that individuals linked to right-wing extremist movements committed every single one. So let's go to the graphic from the report itself. The extremist-related murders in 2018 were overwhelmingly linked to right-wing extremists. Every one of the perpetrators had ties to at least one right-wing extremist movement, although one had recently switched to supporting Islamist extremism. White supremacists were responsible for the great majority of the killings, which is typically the case. Right-wing extremists, and this is according to TPM's report on it, killed 50 people last year, mostly with firearms, making them responsible for more deaths in any year since 1995. So
I think the guy that, if I remember that story right, that guy that switched to Islamic extremism was a Nazi before. So man, that guy had a lot of thoughts in his head. Anyway, and he turned on his fellow Nazis and killed them because now he had become an Islamic extremist. Oh, okay, so man, any of that fundamentalism is a dark, dark place. Now, by the way, now they didn't consider that Islamic extremism as right wing in this case. I just want to be clear about that. He's in that category because for most of his existence, he was a far right extremist. But if you think about it, what are Islamic extremists? And I know this will make the right wing's heads explode, but they're right wingers. In the Islamic world, they're not progressives, they're the right wing.
Fascism falls on the far right of the political spectrum, accompanied with extreme nationalism and authoritarianism. For the newer generations who weren't raised with the stigma of World War II, or who haven't learned about it in school, it can be hard to recognize fascism. Fascism, after all, heavily relies on manipulation. The goal of a fascist dictator is to clear away facts and replace them with their own version of reality. This was a tactic used by Hitler, and we see Trump using this tactic today.
We shall establish, beyond the realm of doubt, facts which, before the dark decade of the Third Reich, would have seemed incredible.
I had a defendant who killed 90,000 Jews, and I asked him, why did you do that? And he said, Hitler knew more than I did, and he told me the Jews were planning to attack as a matter of self-defense, to defend ourselves against that attack. Now, that was the same argument being made by the President of the United States.
What Trump is doing?
We're doing something for which I hanged this man.
You can roughly locate any community in the world, somewhere along a scale running all the way from democracy to despotism.
I hated watching this stuff in civics class, but boy, do I miss it now.
When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in a community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
As a community moves towards despotism, common courtesy is withheld from large groups of people on account of their race.
You're a fucking piece of shit, you fucking spit.
Nasty fucking nigger.
Are you a citizen?
Yes, I am a citizen.
Are you a United States citizen?
Can you please get away from me?
Then you should not be
Can
wearing
you please get away from me?
I hate you, fucking Chinese fuck.
Excuse me.
Put your hands on me one more time, motherfucker. You should get in a fucking Jewish oven and die like your ass.
The fuck?
Fuck you and you nigger fucking people. Okay? Get the fuck out of my country.
Or because they don't like a man's religion.
Is there a Muslim problem in the world?
Absolutely. Christianity is under tremendous siege. It's death by a million cuts. We are getting less and less and less powerful in terms of a religion and in terms of a force.
If a community's middle-income groups grow smaller, the likelihood of despotism is increased.
I make $7.30 an hour. I only get 17 hours a week. It's shit. Everything around here is.
Mr. President! Mr. President!
And when citizens have to accept what they're told.
The media. You mean fake news?
Well, that despotism stands a good chance.
Sleazy people.
Crooked media.
The media has been unbelievably dishonest.
The most dishonest groups of people I've ever met. But I'd never kill them. I hate them. I would never kill them. I would never do that. That's sick. No, I wouldn't. Wait, let's see. I want to find a friendly reporter.
Questions are not encouraged.
Don't ask me questions like that. You're not a very good reporter doing that.
How can you ask such a question?
Do you have a question that now is a legitimate question?
How dare you question the fact?
I guess I don't understand. If the information coming from those leaks is real, then how can the stories be
No,
fake?
the reporting is fake.
And if books and newspapers and the radio are efficiently controlled...
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down.
I have the right to ask the question. I'm a reporter and don't touch me, sir. Don't touch me, sir.
The people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to.
But it must be true. I saw it in this book right here.
Now that's what I call a nice question.
What I say goes, see? I'm the law around here.
I'm president and they're not.
So how do we recognize a fascist in today's society? ContraPoints reports.
The most basic way to resist fascism is to recognize its propaganda for what it is. The idea that appreciating European culture is in some way linked to establishing a white ethno-state is just nonsense. Your enjoyment of Beethoven or white babies or whatever it is you get off to is in no way impeded by the proximity of people with different skin colors and traditions. And it certainly does not require nation, culture, and geographic ancestry to all become the same thing. But in order to recognize fascism, you need to do a lot more than reject the most overt propaganda. In the wake of the disastrous alt-right rally in Charlottesville earlier this month, the Nazis have been driven back into the shadows. At least 2 of their major websites were shut down, Confederate monuments were removed all over the country, and several prominent fascists have begun backpedaling. None of this means fascists will go away, it just means they'll have to be more subtle and indirect. Shortly after the Charlottesville rally, a post titled "Fixing the Alt-Right" appeared on Poll, the the image board where millennial Nazis talk strategy and trade pictures of Japanese nymphets. The post outlines some basic fascist strategy.
Don't get trapped in an echo chamber where you can no longer relate to normies. Pretending that Charlottesville didn't massively push the average white person away is really stupid. We have a chance to actually make changes now that Trump has shifted the Overton window to the right, but we need to be smart and make the movement appealing to the average white person.
And the way to do that is...
disavow all Nazi/KKK edgelord LARPers. There is no way to lose public support quicker than going around making Nazi salutes and holding tiki torches while chanting "Jews will not replace us." This instantly makes the average person hate you. Build a populist movement with realistic, incremental, overt goals. Repealing the 1965 Immigration Act and replacing it with something that both limits total immigration and prioritizes white immigration is an actual, tangible political goal. Keep the long-term goals covert and don't ever reveal your power level. Talking openly about a white ethno-state only leads to failure and the average public turning against you. So disavow anyone who reveals his power level. Leftists will recognize dog whistles and know we're crypto, but normies won't listen to them.
So at first glance, this seems like a really silly, juvenile post that references Dragon Ball Z, but it actually displays a sense of realistic pragmatism and an incremental approach to long-term goals that I wish were more common on the left. But of course, the strategy described here isn't new. Older generations of white supremacists have been doing this stuff for decades. When overt racism is politically unacceptable, politicians have to use coded language in order to appeal to racists. Republican strategist Lee Atwater explained the technique in an interview in 1981.
You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968 you can't say that hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. You're getting so abstract now that you're talking about cutting taxes and all these things that you're talking about are totally economic things. And a byproduct of them is that blacks get hurt worse than whites.
So if you want to recognize a fascist, you have to know how to read subtext and how to hear dog whistles, because 99 times out of 100, a fascist will disavow fascism, racism, and white supremacy, at least when talking to you, a non-fascist.
You too can take part in Domestic Terrorism and aid the anonymous movement by identifying far-right terrorists and fascists in social media and reporting them using the OpDomesticTerrorism hashtag where possible. Our tech-savvy comrades can additionally help by hacking and DDoSing websites, doxing and leaking information. Finally, you can distribute flyers within your city which are provided in the links below. Follow at Latest Anon News, at AnonAntigov, and at AnonyInfoSec for updates and further information. We are anonymous. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.